How is everyone? Say hello if you're in the chat. I just got done watching Darth Paus's new video about Star Wars theory. Let me know if you can hear me and see me clearly. When are you going to do that Red Harvest video? Best starting point in the EU. That's correct, Darth Pause. If anyone ever asks you where they should start in the EU, tell them Red Harvest. And also tell them that Courtship of Princess Leia is like the worst that there is. Anyway, yeah, I just got done watching your video, Darth Pause. It was great. I think you did a really good job addressing all those points. And that it's also something that I wanted to talk about today. I'm busy tomorrow, so I had it scheduled for tomorrow, but I'm going to do it today because if I tell you I'm going to do something, I want to follow through on it. So we're going to get into Skeleton Crew. Nah, I don't think so. We're going to get into Shatterpoint. Thanks for watching. The theory cultists will be crying in the comments. Oh, I can believe it. I'll probably... And I still needed to leave a comment myself. Freudian slip, is that what it is? I was watching the Skeleton Crew earlier. But because I was at work yesterday in the morning for a bit, and I was listening to the Theory Stupendous Wave stream, whatever it's called. And I made a wee note of some of the things they were saying, because I wanted to address it. So, like, off the bat, he was obviously talking about Skeleton Crew, and he just keeps saying stuff like even if it was something he thought was like stupid, he was like, oh, but it's just a kids show. It's just a kids show, it doesn't matter. But then you think about what he's been talking about with Star Wars and like the Clone Wars. Like, TCW is by all means a kids show, and it's just, he doesn't like have the same logic when it comes to everything. It's like his rating system. Like, he'll rate things based on like, he'll rate a Disney show based on other Disney shows. TCW is for 5-year-olds. Like, I remember when that show was coming out, like, I was like the target audience for that. And I was watching Cartoon Network at my grandma's house. Grandma. We call them grannies here. My granny. TCW is a dumb baby show for babies. You're just a stupid baby, man. But yeah, like, I was the target demographic, and I would see the commercials come on for that show, and I was like, what is that? That looks like this, like, the most ridiculous thing ever. And I kind of understood that it wasn't like proper Star Wars, you know? And then, like I've said before, I never even watched Clone Wars until the lockdown. Me and my wife watched it. That's why Theory loves it. He's a dumb baby. Like, I don't want to just call him names, but like you say, Pause, he's the biggest channel, and he's saying this, he's spreading misconceptions like to a large audience of people that don't understand what he's talking about. So there was that, and then he was talking about having like you hear people saying they want to have like Revenge of the Sith done in the TCW style, which would be horrible. You see all those posters where people put Ahsoka and stuff in it. It looks terrible. But he was talking about having a TCW adaptation of The Son of Dathomir, which to my knowledge is it's a Disney comic, isn't it? The Son of Dathomir. Does anyone know? I'm pretty sure that's Disney stuff. Pause says it's terrible. Oh, Narrow Dark, good to see you, pal. It is Disney canon. All right, cool. I did know you were here, Narrow Dark. Just hello, thanks for being here. Shatterpoint is for fully grown men who lift weights and drink beer. He, Anton, I've never seen you before, pal. Good to see you, and you're absolutely correct. So far, at least. Oh, so it's based on stuff that was supposed to be in TCW, I guess. Well, anyway, he wants this adapted. He says it's one of the most entertaining arcs. Um, and he said that having it as a comic is a mistake. And I think that shows like how his mind works. You know, if it's not on screen, it doesn't count, kind of thing. Like he can't absorb it, because we know he doesn't like reading or he finds it difficult or whatever. So yeah, I think that's why he's not interested in reading the EU, because it's not on screen, to put it bluntly. And but yeah, so he did it again. He said that on his stream that George only views the movies and TCW as canon, and he only reads books with pictures. He should get here, I've got a book for Star Wars Theory. I'll dive into the archives. Where is it? Here, Star Wars. Here's a EU book for Star Wars Theory. This one has oh, I've already taken the stickers out, sorry. Oh, there we go. We can read a Phantom Menace adaptation with pictures. I could just do this instead of reading Shatterpoint. Check out how creepy Jar Jar is in these. Oh, there's Darth Jar Jar. Joke aside, that's real Star Wars. Here, we're just going to look at all the Jar Jar pictures first. The words are like literally large, so you might struggle. Let's see, before we move on, any other good Jar Jar pictures? Some of the artwork's actually pretty cool in here. Oh, there's the last one there. Yeah, we might dive into that box a bit later. I forget what I was talking about now. Yeah, so he's saying that George didn't care about the EU. He said that everything outside of that he did not sign off on, and Pause was touching on that in his video. He very well did sign off on it, and I actually released a video today. And I basically, how I made it was, I found a channel, I can't remember the name of the channel, I'll let you know, but he has all of the behind the scenes from the Clone Wars DVDs. So I'm going to do it by season. I started with season 1. George cared about the EU and its canon. You're right. Knights of Undercover, good to see you, pal. You're absolutely right. Yeah, aye, Purist. He pulled out the omnibus, and he was like, oh, everything's in here, everything. It's great. It's like, you've not even read it, pal. You've not even read it. I'll get to the good stuff soon. I wanted to address some of this. Yeah, so as we've stated, he's spreading this to a lot of people that don't know any better. And in my opinion, I think discrediting it is just a way of excusing the fact that he hasn't read it. And he actually said that he doesn't even want to read it. I think that's crazy for a Star Wars fan to say. Oh, sorry, Purist. Yous are trolls, but that's part of the fun. So yeah, he's discrediting it because it means, it's like I always say, like, I grew up listening to the Beatles. Like, I loved them as a kid, but when I got older, I was like, oh, the Beatles are terrible, blah, blah, blah. And it's just because, like, you don't want to have to get into, like, all their back catalogue and be able to explain to people, like, what's good or bad about it. But, like, they're my favourite band. Like, the Beatles are awesome. And it's because I gave them a chance and I dived into it, you know? And it's the same with the EU. If you're just going to not go near it, you're going to be like, oh, that's just terrible and George didn't care about it. But then when you actually start reading it, start with Red Harvest, remember? and it'll get you right into it, and then you'll love it. Even the bad stuff, you'll just take it for what it is, you know. Um, and that's the thing. Like, he obviously thinks that having knowledge of the 6 movies and the Clone Wars makes you some sort of expert. But to be perfectly honest, how many people have seen those movies? Like thousands, millions of people have watched Star Wars. It doesn't make them experts on the topic. Red Harvest connects to everything in the EU. Is that right, Pause? They should make it Essential Legends then. But then I guess they'd have to make everything essential, wouldn't they? But yeah, like the movies, bare minimum, that's like surface level knowledge, you know? And he's also proven that he doesn't know much about like the history of the franchise either. Normies have knowledge in the movies. And it's not a bad thing to say either. If you call someone a casual fan, like they'll tend to get offended by that, but if you're a casual fan of something, if you want to learn more, that's why the EU's there. Like, you want to know more, you're a fanatic. But if you're not interested, you're a casual fan, you like the movies, great. The movies are the pillars. I can be a mod. Yes, Knights of Undercover, you can be a mod. There you go, pal. Yes, pause. He claims to be an expert. That is the problem. So, you know, he's... Oh, sorry, Narrow Dark, I'll obviously mod you as well. I think everyone that watches my channel will be a mod by then. What was the point I wanted to make? So, he's been exposed basically as not knowing everything about... Oh, hey, Little Porg. Little Porg's my wife, by the way. She's got that name just to troll me. Hey, did my message get deleted? I don't think so. I'm not sure. I'm not touching it. I'm over here. What was I saying? So he's been exposed as not knowing everything about the pre-established lore. So he's basically going to pretend that it's irrelevant, and that in doing that he's still going to seem like an authority on Star Wars. But yeah, apart from all that canon stuff, the other thing that was in the stream was he was talking about... Oh, he started talking about NGO, but I'll get to this. Chewbacca eating porgs was the best part of their sequels. Freudian slip. I can't even think of something that's good in those movies. Maybe... I don't know. I can't think. I've not watched them in a long, long time. So yeah, what's basically happened, you all know this, he posted a video on X. He had got the full box of NGO novels, and then he was pulling them all out and he was dropping them on the floor. You could hear them screaming in agony. Ask Theory, he likes them all. Well, I know for certain that he... I know for certain that he liked Force Awakens. I know quite a lot of people gave that a pass at the time, especially like people like me who were not into the EU at the time, you know, and didn't know what was going on. And even Clone Wars, I used to like Clone Wars until I started to learn more and kind of understand like what had happened to actual canon because of that show. I'm pretty sure he said he liked The Last Jedi, but he's taken that video off of his channel, so you can't find it. And then Pause keeps sharing the one where he says he likes the Rise of Palpatine, so... Anyway. So, that was just another photo opportunity, you know, to post, like, all the books and that. He was saying that the videos, the lore videos were going to pop off. Like 8 months later, still nothing. They're gathering dust either on the floor or on the shelf, you know. But yeah, like he got called out. Star Wars Marvel purists called him out, and so did Darth Pause and a handful of other people. So that like he said that he was going to get ghostwriters and they were going to write as lore videos. You'd be getting 2 a week, and then they started to come out, and it was obvious that they were just pulling from like Wikipedia, which is fine. Like sometimes when I'm doing my research, I'll start at Wikipedia and I'll find some things, but they were getting stuff wrong, and because he doesn't know this stuff, he couldn't proofread it and catch it. So just like with spreading misconceptions, he's also spreading fake lore, and people are going to believe it. I know he did something similar on his other channel with was it X-Men lore purist. He was getting it wrong. Yeah, he's got a bunch of other channels, doesn't he? He's got like a gaming channel. Is it a Marvel channel, or is it just comics? I was thinking of doing like Star Trek videos. I could be like Star Trek Scran, or like Babylon 5. You could be Babylon Scran, you know? Just an idea, branching out a little. But I'll probably just try and get through all the EU first before I attempt anything like that. Moving on. I would send a super chat to Theory. To be honest with Theory, he would be a hypocrite because he stands people. Yeah, he hates disagreements, doesn't he? Fantasy Theory. Alright. He probably has other people doing those channels for him anyway. So, yeah, he was called out for spreading the fake lore. And like over 80% of his, he did a poll, and over 80% of his 80% of whoever responded wanted more lore videos. And you can remind us, purist, like how many days has it been since a lore video? It's over 50, I'm sure. You can let us know in the chat. But 54 days, and you're supposed to be getting 2 per day. What is a scran? So I've never actually explained that before. So scran, when I was making my channel, I wanted something. Yeah, Porg's kind of got it. Scran is like when you're hungry and you go and get something to eat, you get a scran. Or like if you've actively eaten something, you've scranned it. So like my thing, I wanted it to be like Scottish terminology, but also kind of like you're getting I don't know, you're getting food, like literature, food, so it's Star Wars scran, you know. But people call me scran, and it's pretty funny. I just go with it. I mean, it's you're not Scottish. Oh, that's alright. Now you know. You're being fed the Star Wars lore. Exactly. That's kind of what I was getting at, Narrow Dark. That's a good way to put it. It could be Star Wars Marvel purist. Like everyone calls him purist, but he doesn't know that Star Wars Theory is actually the George Lucas purist, so he'd better rebrand his channel at this point. Yes, yeah, exactly, purist. They've only released like a handful of lore videos with several mistakes that you pointed out, and then like they're saying he can't deal with disagreements, so instead of being like, oh, I didn't realise that, I didn't know that, I'll take it down, I'll change it or whatever, he just like blocks you from commenting on his channel, or like he'll just act like you're toxic and jealous, which is the whole point, is preserving the true lore of Star Wars. So if you're calling yourself a George Lucas purist, you better be getting it right, you know, especially if you've got a large channel like that. Did I get the $1,000 Theory saber? Aye, I did. There it is. And I'm going to call him out because it's just like Revan's lightsaber. $1,000 I spent on that. And the exchange rate from pounds, I don't even know how much I spent on this thing. Just kidding, by the way. I didn't want him to come after me, and I don't want it to get bad for me, let me tell you that. If you keep going, this will get bad for you. It'll break by next week. Well, I had to buy it before the China tariffs went into effect, you know. When are Scran Sabers going to come out? Who knows, man. I'm. I'd rather spend time talking about Star Wars than trying to create some big massive empire, you know. And his lightsaber, but he has never played SWTOR or Red Deceived. Yeah, he always talks about Malgus in that era, but yeah, he had. I think if you go on his channel, like you'll find plenty of Outlaws videos, but none on SWTOR or KOTOR, you know. Where'd I get to? But yeah, imagine having the largest Star Wars channel and not wanting to learn more about Star Wars. I would probably just keep them all. Yeah, that's probably true. That was a Padme line. If you're a true dork, you would have got that. It's probably true. But yeah, if you're complaining about Disney shows when there's 40 years worth of George Lucas Star Wars to indulge in, and yeah, that includes the EU obviously. So if you're listening, Theory, go read some EU. Theory and his fans are all casuals in the worst sense. It's true, and because I made a post, I remember saying something to that likeness, and someone got really upset, and I was like, well, if you identify as someone with surface level knowledge, that's on you. If you know this stuff, then you know this stuff, and you can call. If you're not calling Theory out when he gets it wrong, then it's kind of on you. Sounds like a you problem, pretty much. What was the other thing I wanted to talk about? He was talking about Skeleton Crew and what George said about being able to use the Force. I know there's a quote from back in like the 80s where George Lucas didn't care for the EU and yet wrote a prologue for Shatterpoint. Exactly, and we talked about that on one of the other streams. And that's only one of the things that he was involved in. In my video today, Dave Filoni, back when they were doing TCW, was looking at the background of Grievous, and he was like, oh, it came from something that was non-canon. So we went straight to George and we asked him, like, what did you think happened in Grievous's background? Like, George is the one that dictated to James Luceno through Matthew Stover Grievous's background. It was a big point of his being commissioned for that novel, you know, and it ties right into Revenge of the Sith. So George already knows Grievous's background. And with Genndy Tartakovsky, that's how you pronounce it, pause, by the way, Genndy Tartakovsky, his Clone Wars, George was the one that told him about how Dooku trained him and stuff like that. But then they made it so, what was it Filoni said? He said Grievous wanted to be a Jedi, so he on instead of being he was in a crash. They set up a crash for Grievous so that he would get all dismembered and the Geonosians would put him back together, you know. And Filoni says that I can't pronounce that name. I know you can't, pause. It's all right. That's why I'm here. I'll feed it to you. He said that Grievous wanted to be a Jedi and that he upgraded his body on purpose to be able to like do all that stuff, which is the most ridiculously idiotic thing I can think of for Grievous. And he's like, why would Grievous be in what's the word, submission to Dooku? And it's like, well, he doesn't know that Dooku did that to him, and Dooku's training him how to use lightsabers. And then he's like, oh, but we left it ambiguous, so who knows? Ridiculous. No regard for lore or canon or whatever. Like every other person that worked for Lucasfilm tried so hard to stick to that, not to contradict things. And then Filoni turns up and he just does whatever he wants. So because of that, I'd like TCW can't be considered canon because it contradicts original lore and it contradicts the EU and the movies. So I don't know. I know some people say it's like war propaganda, and if you watch it through that lens, I guess you can get some enjoyment out of it. But whatever. So he was talking about the Force. Courtship of Princess Leia is top 3 EU. I don't know if you're joking, but like I would consider Courtship my third favorite EU novel, just out of what I've read. Obviously, I'm still getting there. Labyrinth of Evil, Kenobi, Courtship of Princess Leia, and Plagueis. Oh, Narrow Dark. Give it a read. It's definitely worth a read. Or if you're too busy, you can watch my video about it. I kind of went over the highlights and a bit. I obviously did the background and history of it. Really interesting. So yeah, he was talking about Georgie's view on the Force, and that he said that anyone can use it. But obviously, over time, George has developed his concepts, and it's in the Paul Duncan's what is that book called? The Archives for is Shadows at the bottom? Shadows of the Empire isn't at the bottom. My wife thinks it's funny because I was reading her some of the bits where Shizor, it's pronounced Shizor by the way, not Zizor, theory. Shizor was like seducing Leia, and it was kind of like smut. It was a bit smutty. So I was reading it to her, and she's like, "That's ridiculous." Theory loves to twist George Lucas's quotes, and that's because he's a Filoni faithful, and he's going to parrot everything Filoni says. Yeah, but all the stuff with Shizor and Leia, like I could take or leave it, but I understand why Steve Perry put that in there. But I mean, if never mind. Where'd I get to? But yeah, in the Archives it talks about midichlorians and how yes, the Force is in everyone, but Shizor, it does sound kind of like a Star Trek name, doesn't it? Shizor. So everyone has the Force, but you have to have a certain midichlorian count and for you to be Force sensitive, and then you need training to be able to, get really good at it. So yeah, not everyone can just use the Force. Read the Ahsoka book. It's peak, man. Fire, bro. Yeah, read it and then watch Filoni's Tales of the Jedi and realise that he contradicted it. Because it's just it's just a campfire story, isn't it? Why would the public... what are you saying, pal? TCW doesn't make sense as propaganda. Why would the Republic make a story about Anakin going to a mysterious planet and meeting Force gods and having Anakin have visions of becoming Vader? That's true. That's true. Whatever helps you sleep at night, though, I guess. I mean, TCW fits a lot better with Disney continuity anyway, so you can just shove it to the side. I mean, I understand a lot of people grew up with it and they've got like a soft spot for it, Oh, speaking of the Ewoks, Theory also said that someone asked him to cover the Ewok movies. I've got them right here. We're not using Disney Plus. We've got them on physical media. Someone asked him to do like watch parties for these movies, and he just went quiet and he was like, "Yeah, no," and then moved on. I was like, "How are you going to brush the Ewok movies aside? That's insane." He obviously doesn't know that George was involved and even filmed the reshoots for this, where the young actor said that the filming got more intense, which he's not lying because George likes it faster with more intensity. But yeah, I'm going to be watching these again, and I'll do something with it on my channel. I'll either do a review or I don't really want to do that with all the movies. We've all seen the movies, but I think this definitely deserves some love. And I know Star Wars Marvel Purist did it with J-Man. It was J-Man, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. But you should go check that stream out as well. I think they came to the consensus that the Battle for Endor is better. Yeah, I missed that. Sorry. So the show Skeleton Crew doesn't feel like Star Wars, but it's just a fun kids show. So he sees no problem with it, and that it's not destroying lore. But it was brought to my attention that Jude Law's character is Crimson Jack from the old Marvel comics, and he tried to connect it to Crimson Dawn. He was like, obviously just heard the word Crimson. It just shows how surface level it is. And speaking of EU knowledge, yes, he was talking about. Basically, he said he read his first NGO novel. He couldn't remember the name, first of all, and basically he said that he listened to the abridged audiobook version. And I know Purist has been talking about it on all his streams. You can get the unabridged versions on YouTube. Like, actual fans are like producing that stuff. So I really don't know why he bought all 19 books. He paid Disney for all 19 books with the Legends labels just to listen to the abridged version. Is that elephant alien the new cute creature they are trying to obsess people with? Yes, his name is Neil. And they're really adamant that he's not the same species as Max Rebo. But like, how many blue alien species is there in Star Wars? So yeah, he claims to have listened to Vector Prime, and so yeah, so he bought all those books, and like you were saying, Purist, it was just for that photo op, you know. His name is Baby Dumba. I really like Baby Dumba. So yeah, and then they couldn't remember the name of it, so Stupendous Wave actually looked it up, and he's someone that claims to have read a lot of Star Wars lore. So they looked it up, and he's like, "Oh, there's 19 books in this series," and then Theory asked him if he'd read them, and he says, "Not all of them." And I know for a fact that's what people say when they haven't read something. They'll say, "Oh, I haven't read all of it," like implying they've read some of it. There's no way. You can't have started that series and not wanted to finish it and or known a little bit about it. So he hasn't read it, but then he's like, "Oh, I can't wait for Disney to ruin the Vong." It's like, you don't even know anything about the Vong, so how are you going to know? And then the thing that got me, Theory was explaining like what happens in Vector Prime, and he completely glossed over the fact that Chewbacca died in it. And for anyone that's read it, that's like a big deal. Like, I remember I had sat the book down, and then when we were covering it on Purist stream, like everyone like said their piece on it, you know, and even the characters are still dealing with the grievance of that. So I don't know, maybe the abridged version like erased that part of the book. Who knows? Who knows? But he basically said that casual fans don't know about NGO. He said he had a few of them as a teenager but never read them, and he said before he doesn't like reading. So, welcome Tony, good to see you, pal. We're going to get to the book shortly. I've kind of went on a wee tangent. Everyone else is talking about it, so I thought I'd say my piece. But yeah, reading's too hard apparently, and it only counts when it's on screen. So that was everything I wanted to cover about that. I talked about the Ewok movies. I'm going to do something with that on my channel, so let's talk some real Star Wars since the big channel won't. We are on chapter 1. And like I say, if you've got your own copy, grab it and you can follow along, alright? The last thing we read was the intro, and it kind of went into Mace Windu's trauma after the Battle of Geonosis, and it was they had he's basically getting sent to this planet to investigate these murders that they believe his Padawan has committed. Her name was Deba Baliba. Deba Baliba. And so far, I'm really liking Stover's style of like dialogue between, especially Palpatine and Mace Windu. But yeah, last time I did a stream about the history of the novel, and I actually read George Lucas's prologue, which was an introduction to the multimedia project. So you can always go back and check that out. Alright. I sifted through it. There's about 10 pages, so that's both sides. You've got about 20 pages. So bear with me, and feel free to come back later if you need to drop out. Alright. But we're doing this. We're going all the way through the book. I've been talking for 36 minutes. Let's actually get on with this. 2 seconds. And I'll take a wee break every now and then to see what you're saying. So, part 1, Men in the Jungle. And we're on chapter 1, The Downward Spiral. Through the curved transparisteel, Harun Kal was a wall of mountain-punched clouds beside him. It looked close enough to touch. The shuttle's orbit spiraled slowly toward the surface. Soon enough, he would be able to touch it in truth. The in-system shuttle was only a 20-seater, and even so, it was 3/4 empty. The shuttle line had bought it. Used from a tour company. The tube-like passenger fuselage was entirely transparisteel, its exterior scarred and fogged with microbody pits, its interior bare except for strips of grey, no skid laid along the aisles. Mace Windu was the lone human. His shipmates were 2 Kubas who floated excitedly about the culinary possibilities of pinching beetles and buzzworms, and a mismatched couple who seemed to be some kind of itinerant comedy act. A Kitonic and a faux Fihan whose canned banter made Mace wish for earplugs. Bear with me, folks, I'm struggling a little bit here. And you can correct me if I'm pronouncing anything wrong. Or hard vacuum. Or plain old-fashioned deafness. They must have been far down on their luck to be taking a tourist shuttle into Pelik Ba. Harun Kal's capital city is a place loungeacts go to die. Passenger liners on the Governo Loop only stopped there at all because they had to drop into real space anyway for the system's transit. Mace sat as far from the others as the shuttle's limited space allowed. The Jedi Master wore clothing appropriate to his cover, a stained vest of Corellian sand panther leather over a loose shirt that used to be white, and skin-tight black pants with wear patches of grey. His boots carried a hint of polish, but only above the ankle. The uppers were scuffed almost to suede. The only parts of his ensemble that were well maintained were the supple holster belted to his right thigh, and the gleaming Merson Power 5 it held. His lightsaber was stuffed into the kit bag beneath his seat, disguised as an old-fashioned glow rod. The datapad on his lap was also in disguise, though it worked well enough for him to encrypt his journal on it. Most of it was actually a miniature subspace transmitter, frequency locked to the band monitored by the medium cruiser Halleck, on station on the Ventran system. The coronal highlands swung into view, a vast plateau of every conceivable shade of green, skirted by bottomless swirls of cloud, crisscrossed by interlocking mountain ranges. A few of the tallest peaks were capped with white, many of the shorter mountains plumbed billows of smoke and gas. The eastern half of the highland had already rolled through the terminator. When the shuttle passed into the planet's shadow, gleams of dark red and orange specked the world like predators' eyes beyond the ring of a campfire's light. Open caladre of the highlands' many active volcanoes. It was beautiful, Mace barely noticed. He held the recording wand of his fake datapad and spoke very, very softly. From the private journals of Mace Windu. Initial Harun Kal entry. Depa's down there, right now. I shouldn't be thinking about this. I shouldn't be thinking about her. Not yet. But she's down there. She's been down there for months. I can't imagine what might have happened to her. I don't want to imagine. I'll find out soon enough. Focus. I have to focus. Concentrate on what I know is true, while I wait for the mud to settle and the water to become clear. A lesson of Yoda's, but sometimes you can't wait, and sometimes the water never clears. I can focus on what I know about Harun Kal. I know a lot. Here's some of it. Harun Kal. Al-Har... Oh, do you not pronounce the H? Is it Al-Haral? Al-Haral? Oh, Al-Har. I've got it. Harun Kal, sole planet of Al-Har system. There we go, we've got it. Harun Kal is the name given to it in the language of the indigenous human population, the Karunai, uplanders. It translates to basic as above the clouds. From space, the world appears to be oceanic, with only a few green-topped islands rising from a restless, multicoloured sea. But this is deceptive. The sea that these islands punctuate is not liquid, but an ocean of heavier-than-air toxic gases, which plume endlessly from the planet's innumerable active volcanoes. Only on the mountaintops and the high plateaus can oxygen-breathing life survive, and not on many of these. Unless they rise far above the cloud sea, they are vulnerable to Harun Kal's unpredictable winds, especially during Harun Kal's brief winter, when the Fakis Bokal, the downstorm, blows. The winds can whip the thick cloud sea high enough to scour lowlands free of oxygen breathers within hours. Its capital, Pelik Ba, is located on the sole inhabited landmass, the plateau known as the Karunai Highland, and is the largest permanent settlement on this primarily jungle-covered planet. This planet has everything. It's got like these gas clouds, it's got volcanoes, it's got like jungle. Yeah, it sounds like a pretty dangerous place. The indigenous humans live in small semi-nomadic tribal groups called Gosh and avoid the settlements, which are maintained by off-worlders of a wide variety of species. The Karunai lump all off-worlders and settled folk under the somewhat contemptuous category of Balawi, down folk. There is a long history of unorganized local conflicts. This doesn't help. I can't fit what I know of Harun Kal into a guidebook description. Too much of what I know is the colour of the sun flash and the smell of the wind of grandfather's shoulder, the silken ripple of a grasser's undercoat through my fingers, the hot, fierce sting of an ack dog's force touch. I was born on Harun Kal, far back in the highland. I am a full-blooded Koran. I don't remember if it mentioned that earlier, so this is where Mace Windu's actually from. 100 generations of my ancestors breathed that air and drank that water. ate the fruit of that soil and were buried deep within it. I've returned only once, 35 standard years ago, but I have carried that world with me, the feel of it, the power of its storms, the upswelling tangle of its jungles, the thunder of its peaks. But it is not home. Home is Coruscant. Home is the Jedi Temple. I have no recollection of my infancy among the Karunai. My earliest memory is of Yoda's kindly smile and enormous gentle eyes close above me. It is still vivid. I don't know how old I might have been, but I am certain I could not yet walk. Perhaps I was too young to even stand. In memory, I can see my plump infant's hands reaching up to tug at the white straggles of hair above Yoda's ears. And I was talking about that a bit last time, like, you forget Yoda is that old that a lot of these Jedi, he pretty much helped raise them. Yeah, I think that's a really cool touch, especially because they don't allow themselves to have that emotional bond with people, really. So, like, they grow up to be fully fledged Jedi, and then it's kind of like a professional relationship that they have together. It's bizarre. And that's the kind of thing I like in the EU, when they have little moments like that. Like, he was just a kid, and he had Yoda above him, and he was like pulling on his hair and stuff. It's really nice touches that they put in there. I recall squalling, shrieking like a wounded glowbat, as Yoda prefers to describe it, as some kind of toy, a rattle, it might have been, bobbed in the air just beyond my grasp. I recall how no amount of shouting, screaming, howling, or tears could draw that rattle 1 millimeter closer to my tiny fist. And I recall the instant I first reached for the toy without using my hands, how I could feel it hanging there, and I could feel how Yoda's mind supported it, and a whisper of the Force began to hum in my ears. The next lesson, Yoda had come to take the rattle away, and I, with my infant's instinctive selfishness, had refused to release it. Holding on with both my hands and all I could summon of the Force, the rattle broke. To my infant mind, a tragedy like the end of the world. For that had been Yoda's way of introducing the Jedi law of non-attachment. Holding too tightly to what we love will destroy it, and break our hearts as well. And that's a really good illustration there, actually. I don't know what that was. Yeah, I really like that. That was a nice touch. That's a lesson I don't want to be thinking about right now. But I can't help myself, not right now. Not while I'm up here. And Depa is down there. Depa Baliba came into my life by accident. One of those joyous coincidences that are sometimes the gift of the galaxy. I found her after I fought and killed the pirates who had murdered her parents. These pirates had kidnapped their victim's lovely infant daughter. I never learned what they wanted to do with her, or to her. I refused to speculate. An advantage of Jedi mental discipline, I can stop myself from imagining such things. She grew to girlhood in the temple, and to womanhood as my Padawan. The proudest moment of my life was the day I stood and directed the Jedi Council to welcome its newest member. She is one of the youngest Jedi ever to be named to the Council. On the day of her elevation, Yoda suggested that it was my teaching that had brought her so far while still so young. He said this, I think, more from courtesy than from honesty. She came so far while still so young because she is who she is. My teaching had little to do with it. I have never met anyone like her. Depa is more than a friend to me. She's one of the most dangerous attachments. She is the daughter I will never have. All the Jedi discipline in the galaxy cannot entirely overpower the human heart. I hear her voice again and again. You should never have sent me here, and I should never have come. I can't stop myself from reaching into the Force, though I know it is useless. Since shortly before Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi stood in front of the Council to report the rebirth of the Sith, A mysterious veil of darkness had clouded the Force. Close by, in both space and time, the Force is as it always has always been, guide and ally, my invisible eyes and unseen hands. But why I tried to search through the Force for Depa, sorry, but when I tried to search through the Force for Depa, I find only shadows, indistinct and threatening. The crystal purity of the Force has become a thick fog of menace. Again. But what's done can never be undone. I can shake my head till my brain rattles, but I can't seem to drive away those words. I must clear my mind. Pelik Baw is still separatists. And I will have to be alert. I must stop thinking about her. Instead, I think about the war. What are you thinking so far? I'm really liking it. I'm really liking the imagery of the planet, and we're obviously learning about Mace's background a bit, like where he comes from and his relationship with his Padawan and the Jedi Council, and even his infancy. It's some really cool stuff. Glad you're liking it so far, Lil Porg. I know Purist isn't a big fan of this novel, so I'm determined to find something good about it that he can appreciate. Stover is very underrated in Shatterpoint. So far, I'd agree with you, Darth Pause. He's also said that out of all the Star Wars novels he's written, this was the most fun to do. So, moving on. The Republic was caught entirely unprepared. After 1,000 years of peace, no one, especially not as Jedi, truly believed civil war would ever come. How could we? Not even Yoda could remember the last general war. Peace is more than a tradition. It is the bedrock of civilization itself. This was the Confederacy's great advantage. The Separatists not only expected war, they counted on it. By the time the smouldering Clone War burst into Geonosian flame, their ships were already in motion. In the weeks that followed, while we Jedi tended our wounds and mourned our dead, while the Senate scrambled to assemble a fleet, any kind of fleet, to match the power of the Confederacy of independent systems, while Supreme Chancellor Palpatine pleaded and bargained and sometimes had to outright threaten wavering senators to not only stay loyal to the Republic, but also support its clone army with their credits and their resources. The Separatists had fanned out across the galaxy, seeding the hyperspace lanes with their forces. The major approaches into Separatist space were picketed by droid starfighters, backed up by newly revealed capital ships, Geonosian dreadnoughts that lumbered out from secret shipyards. Strategically, it was a masterpiece. Any thrust into the world at the core of the Confederacy would be blunted and delayed long enough for Separatist reserves to engage it. Any attack with sufficient strength to swiftly overwhelm their pickets would leave hundreds or thousands of worlds open to swift Separatist reprisal. Behind their droid-walled frontier, they could gather their forces at leisure, striking out to swallow Republic systems piecemeal. Even before the Republic was ready to fight, we had lost. Something about the writing style there reminds me of like the like Zan's writing in Heir of the Empire. You know, like a lot of the strategic stuff to do with Thrawn, and how it was all like strategically kind of planned out and stuff like that, and how he put it into motion. Yeah, I'm liking it. I'm really liking the. I'll keep emphasizing that. I'm really liking his writing style. Even before the Republic was ready to fight, we had lost. Yoda is the master strategist of the Jedi Council, a life as vast as his predisposed one to see the big picture and take the long view. He developed our current strategy of limited engagement on multiple fronts. Our goal is to harass the separatists, wear them down in a war of attrition, chip away at them and prevent them from consolidating their position. In this way, we hope to gain time for the titanic manufacturing base of the Republic to be converted to the production of ships, weapons, and other war material. And time to train our troops. The Kaminoan clone troopers are not only the best soldiers we have, they are very nearly our only soldiers. We would use them to train civilian volunteers and law enforcement personnel in weapons and tactics, but the separatists have managed to keep nearly all 1 million of them fully engaged, rushing from system to system and planet to planet to meet probing attacks from the bewildering variety of war droids that the Techno Union, with the financial backing of the Trade Federation, turns out in seemingly unlimited quantities. So this is really close to the beginning of the Clone Wars, isn't it? All this stuff still getting set up. Since we need all our clones simply to defend Republic systems, we have been forced to find ways to attack without them. The Separatists don't enjoy unalloyed popularity, even in their core systems, and in any society, there are fringe elements eager to take up arms against authority. Jedi have been covertly inserted on hundreds of worlds, with a common mission: to organize loyalist resistance, train partisans in sabotage and guerrilla warfare, and generally do whatever possible to debilitize the separatist governments. This was why Depa Baliba came to Harun Kal. I sent her here. The Alhar system, of which Harun Kal is the sole planet, lies on the nexus of several hyperspace lanes. The hub of a wheel called the Governal Loop, whose spokes join the separatist systems of Kilisu, Jutrand, Loposi, and the Gavarno cluster with Opari, Ventran, and Chimance, all loyalist, due to local stellar configurations and the mass sensitivities of modern hyperdrives. Any ship travelling from one of these systems to another can cut several standard days off its journey by coming through Alhar, even counting the day-long real space transit of the system itself. That's pretty interesting that they can cut across hyperlanes like that. I remember in it might have been Dark Force Rising. Is it Dark Force Rising? And they're talking about taking shortcuts through hyperspace lanes, but it's like extremely dangerous for whatever reason. I can't recall. So that is interesting. I think I just saw King Chris in the chat. Good to see you, bud. Nah, it is King Chris. Good to see you, man. Are you a... I'll take a wee break. Are you a fan of Shatterpoint? I don't remember if you were in the earlier stream that we did. There's quite a lot of like planet names and stuff. Like if you're not familiar with them, it's kind of hard to pronounce. You've never read it? Right, cool. It's got kind of like mixed reviews. A lot of people either kind of love it or they hate it. So far I'm loving it. The EU has the best descriptions of planets. Yeah, like interesting names in themselves, but the actual planets themselves, like a lot of thought went into like the geography of those, didn't it? Right. None of these systems has any vast strategic value, but the Republic has lost too many systems to succession to risk losing any to conquest. Control of the Alhar Nexus offers control of the whole region. It was decided that Harun Kal is worth the Council's attention, and not solely for its military uses. In the temple archives are reports of the Jedi anthropologists who studied the Karun tribes. They have a theory that a Jedi spacecraft may have made a forced landing there, perhaps thousands of years ago during the turmoil of the Sith War. That'll be the Sith War that people claim never happened. Here's a book that George would have talked to Stover about and known about. So I'd like to do a video maybe talking about the Sith War and George's involvement in that, because I know there's a quote out there where he says like it never happened, but I think that's out of context. And it's also talking about Jedi anthropologists. If you read the Jedi Path by Daniel Wallace, it goes into how not all Jedi were like strong in the Force and they were out there doing missions and stuff. A lot of them had different roles within the Jedi Temple, like anthropology. There were healers. I'll need to dig that out and do some research on that as well for you. I didn't throw it like theory through his books. I placed it on top of the Ewok DVD, right? Where did I get to? The Sith War. When so many Jedi were lost to history, there are several varieties of fungi native to the jungles of Harun Kal that eat metals and siliciates. A ship that could not lift off again immediately would be grounded forever, and comm equipment would be equally vulnerable. The ancestors of the Karunai, the anthropologists believed, were these shipwrecked Jedi. Oh wow, okay. So alright, that is interesting. I assume that'll come back up later. This is their best explanation for a curious genetic fact. All Karunai can touch the Force. The true explanation may be simpler. We have to. Those who cannot use the Force do not long survive. Humans can't live in those jungles. The Karunai survive by following their grasser herds. Grassers, great six-limbed behemoths, tear down the jungle with their forehands and massive jaws. Their name comes from the grassy meadows that are left in their wake. It is in those meadows that the Karunai make their precarious lives. The grassers protect the Karunai from the jungle. The Karunai in turn, with their force-bonded companions, the fierce act dogs, protect the grassiers. And that's kind of derivative of the Witches of Dathomir and the Rancors. They kind of have that back and forth relationship as well. Sorry, where'd I get to? When the Jedi anthropologists were ready to depart, they had asked the elders of Gosh Windu if they might take with them a child to train in the Jedi arts, thus recovering the Force talent of the Karunai to serve the peace of the galaxy. That would be me. I was an infant, an orphan, called by the name of my Gosh, for my parents had been taken by the jungle before my naming day. I was 6 months old. The choice was made for me. I've never minded. It is the Karunai that Depa came here to train and use as anti-government partisans. The civil government of Harun Kal is entirely Balawi, off-worlders and their descendants, beneficiaries of the financial interests behind the Thistle bark trade. Government of the Balawi, by the Balawi, and for the Balawi. No Karun need apply. Cheers for liking the stream, by the way. That's awesome. I think we're getting through it a bit faster than we did last time, which is good. The government and the planetary militia, their military arm, joined the Confederacy of Independent Systems as a cynical dodge to squelch an ongoing judicial department investigation into their treatment of the Karun natives, in exchange for the use of the capital spaceport as a base to conduct, repair, and refit for the Alhar fleet of droid starfighters. The separatists provided arms for the militia and turned a blind eye toward illegal Balawi activities in the Karunal highland. But since Depa arrived, the separatists have discovered that even the smallest bands of determined guerrillas can have a devastating effect on military operations. Especially when all these guerrillas can touch the Force. This was a large part of Depa's argument for coming here in the first place, and why she insisted on handling it personally. Untrained Force users can be exceedingly dangerous, while talents crop up unpredictably in such populations. Wild talents crop up unpredictably in such populations. Depa's mastery of Vapad makes her virtually unbeatable in personal combat, and her own cultural training in the elegant philosophical mystical disciplines of the Chalactan adepts, making her uniquely resistant to all forms of mental manipulation, from force-powered suggestion to brainwashing by torture. Alright, so that's one of those force abilities I guess not all Jedi have, which is another cool thing in the EU. Like, not all Jedi can do the same thing. And it mentioned Vapad there. We talked about it in the introduction, but that's obviously Mace Windu's fighting style that he's mastered. And I found a clip, I'll share it afterwards maybe, and it's Matthew Stover talking about Vapad. He's a martial artist in real life, but he's talking about like all the different styles of lightsaber fighting and stuff, and he's basically saying that like it's all kind of gibberish, like that's not how that works in real life. And then he actually calls it canonical as well. So just a cool bit of footage that I found. And he obviously does that clip where he calls everything canon as well. So you know, these guys knew that this stuff counted when it was being written, and it still counts. Vapad. So she's able to kind of resist like force suggestion. That's kind of cool. I believe she may have also nursed a private hope that some of the Karunai might be persuaded to enlist in the Grand Army of the Republic. A cadre of... I'm probably saying that wrong, sorry. A cadre of force-capable commandos could take a great deal of the pressure off the Jedi and accomplish missions that no clone troopers could hope to survive. I suspect, too, that part of the reason she insisted on taking this mission was sentimental. I think she came here because Harun Kal is where I was born. Though this world has never been my true home, I bear its stamp to this day. The Karun culture is based on a simple premise that they call the 4 pillars: honour, duty, family, herd. The first pillar is honour, your obligation to yourself. Act with integrity, speak the truth, fight without fear, love without reservation. Greater than this is the second pillar, duty. Your obligation to others, do your job, work hard, obey the elders, stand by your gosh. Greater still is the third pillar, family. Care for your parents, love your spouse, teach your children, defend your blood. Greatest of all is the fourth pillar, herd. For it is on the grasser herds that the life of the Gosh depends. Your family is more important than your duty. Your duty outweighs your honour, but nothing is more important than your herd. If the well-being of the herd requires the sacrifice of your honour, you do it. It is required that you shirk your duty, you do it. Whatever it takes, even your family. I'm just kind of observing that a little bit. The culture obviously has quite a good kind of like morality to them, in the way that they live their lives. I was kind of on board. I was following them until the herd thing. I might have to read that later. Interesting. Yoda once observed. Yoda once observed that, though I left Cal as an infant, and returned only once as a youth to train in the Quran force bond with the great axe, he thinks I have the four pillars in my veins, along with my Koran blood. He said that honour and duty are as natural to me as breathing, and that the only real difference my Jedi training has made is that the Jedi have become my family, and the Republic itself is my herd. Okay, that makes more sense. This is flattering. I hope it might be true, but I don't have an opinion on the subject. I'm not interested in opinions. I'm interested in facts. Like how the expanded universe is canon. It's facts. I'm not interested in Star Wars theories opinion. Sorry. This is a fact. I found the Shatterpoint of the Governal Loop. Another fact. Depa volunteered to strike it. And another fact. That she said, I have become the darkness in the jungle. The spaceport at Belik Ba smelled clean. It wasn't. Typical backworld port, filthy, disorganised, half choked with rusted remnants of disabled ships. Mace stepped off the shuttle ramp and slung his kit bag by its strap. Smothering wet heat pricked sweat across his bare scalp. He raised his eyes from the ochre-scaled junk and discarded crumbles of empty Nutripacks scattered around the landing bay. Up into the misty turquoise sky. The white crown of Grandfather's shoulder soared above the city, the tallest mountain on the Karunal Highland, an active volcano with dozens of open calderae. Mace remembered the taste of the snow at the tree line, the thin cold air and the aromatic resins of the evergreen scrub below the summit. He had spent far too much time of his life on Coruscant. If only he could have come here for some other reason. Any other reason. Yeah, this planet is like a total contrast from Coruscant, isn't it? But I guess most are saying that. A straw-coloured shimmer in the air around him explained the clean smell. A surgical sterilisation field. He'd expected it. The spaceport had always had a powered-up surgical field umbrella to protect ships and equipment from the various native fungi that fed on metals and silicates. The field also wiped out the bacteria and molds that would otherwise have made the spaceport smell like an overloaded refresher. And for those that don't know, the refresher is the name for like toilets in Star Wars. They call them the freshers. The spaceport's probiotic showers were still in their long, low blockhouse of mold-stained duracrete, but their entrance had been expanded into a large, temporary-looking office of injunction, moulded plastifoam, with a foam slab door that hung askew on half-sprung hinges. The door was streaked with rusty stains that had dripped from the fungus-chewed Durasteel sign above. The sign said, Customs. Mace went in. Sunlight leaked green through mold-tracked windows. Climate control wheezed a body temperature breeze from ceiling vents, and the smell loudly advertised that this place was well beyond the reach of the surgical field. Inside the customs office, enough flybuzz hummed to get the two Kubas chuckling, and, and eagerly nudging each other. Mace didn't quite manage to ignore the faux Fahian, broadly explaining to a bored-looking human that he just jumped in from Kashyyyk, and boy, were his legs tired. The agent seemed to find this about as tolerable as Mace did. He hurriedly passed the comedians along after the pair of Kubas, and they all disappeared into the shower blockhouse. Mace found a different customs agent, an Amoidian female with pink slitted eyes, cold-bloodedly sleeping in the heat. She looked over his identikit incuriously. Carillion, huh? Purpose of your visit? Business. I think I just saw Purist. I don't know if you've been here the whole time, but there's been some really good moments in this that I think even you would really appreciate, even though you're not a fan of the novel. She sighed tiredly. You'll need a better answer than that. Corellia is no friend of the Confederacy, which would be why I'm doing business here. I scan you. Open your bag for inspection. Mace thought about the old-fashioned glow rod stashed in his bag. He wasn't sure how convincing its shell would be to Nemoidian eyes, which could see deep into the infrared. I'd rather not. Do I care? Open it. She squinted a dark pink eye up at him. Hey, nice skin job. You could almost pass for a Kurin. Almost? You're too tall, and they almost have hair. And anyways... Sorry, and they mostly have hair. And anyways, Kurunai are all force freaks, yes? They have powers and stuff. I have powers, yeah? Sure, Mace hooked his thumbs behind his belt. I have the power to make 10 credits appear in your hand. The Nemoidian looked thoughtful. That's a pretty good power. Let's see it. He passed his hand over the customs agent's desk and let fall a coin he'd palmed from the belt's slit pocket. The Nemoidian had powers of her own. She made the coin disappear. Not bad. She turned up her empty hand. Let's see it again. Let's see the identikit validated and my bag passed. The Nemoidian shrugged and complied, and Mace did his trick again. Power like yours, you'll get along fine in Pelikbaugh, she said. Pleasure doing business with you. Be sure to take your PB tabs, and see me on your way off-world. Ask for Pule. I'll do that. Towards the back of the customs office, a large advertised screen advised everyone entering Pelikbaugh to use the probionic showers before leaving the spaceport. The showers replaced beneficial skin flora that had been killed by the surgical field. This advice was supported by gruesomely graphic hollows of the wide variety of fungal infections awaiting unshowered travellers. A dispenser beneath the screen offered half-credit dose of tablets guaranteed to restore intestinal flora as well. Mace bought a few, took one, then stepped into the shower blockhouse. Purist says, I would have preferred a Mace story more in line with the O3 Clone Wars of over-the-top like when he's on Dantooine and he's like he loses his lightsaber and he's like he's like fighting all those like thousands of droids by hand and just destroying them. That is actually mentioned in Labyrinth of Evil, believe it or not. Which, you know, we've talked about, George was involved with. George also said that 2003 Clone Wars gives you a bit of background and ties right into episode 3, so yeah, it's canonical. Ah, you're right, pause. There was bricks and screws in that episode, wasn't there? I'm out of water, so we're on to the whiskey. The blockhouse had a smell all its own. A dark, musky funk, rich and organic. The showers themselves were simple, auto-nozzled spraying bacterium, rich nutrient mist. Like, before I go on, like this, um, a lot of this stuff's given me like Kenobi book vibes. You know what I mean? Like Kenobi's kind of just going about like everyday kind of stuff and dealing with like your average person. Little Porg, if you could bring me some water, that'd be awesome. That'd be sick. Pause. The Kenobi book is not mid. I told you last time. If you're bounce, change your tune or bounce. Right? On any given day, it's my second favourite EU book. Ah, yeah, Purist, you have to create a specific scale for rating these things. Um, the showers themselves were simple, auto-nozzled spraying bacterium-rich nutrient mist. They lined the walls of the 30-metre walk-through. Mace stripped off his clothes and stuffed them into his kit bag. There was a conveyor strip for possessions beside the walk-through entrance, but he held on to the bag. A few germs wouldn't do it any harm. At the far end of the showers, he walked into a situation. The dressing station was loud with turbine-driven air-jet dryers. The two Cubas and the comedy team, still naked, milled uncertainly in one corner. A large, surly-looking human in sun-bleached khakis and a military cap stood facing them, impressive arms folded across his equally impressive chest. He stared at the naked travellers with cold, unspecific threat. A smaller human in a smaller human in identical clothing rummaged through their bags, which were piled behind the large man's legs. The smaller man had a bag of his own, into which he dropped anything small and valuable. Both men had stun batons dangling from belt loops and blasters secured in snap-flap holsters. Mace nodded thoughtfully. The situation was clear enough. Based on who he was supposed to be, he should just ignore this. But cover or not, he was still a Jedi. The big one looked Mace over, head to toe and back again. His stare had the open insolence that came of being clothed and armed and facing someone who was naked and dripping wet. Here's another. Smart guy carried his own bag. The other rose and unlooped his stun baton. Sure, smart guy. Let's have the bag. Inspection, come on. Mace went still. Probi mist condensed the rivulets and trickled down the bare skin. I can read your mind, he said darkly. You only have 3 ideas, and all of them are wrong. Oh, we're getting there. Oh, thank you. Cheers. Don't see that on other streams, do you? Yeah, I just turned the page. Mace flipped up a thumb. You think being armed and ruthless means you can do whatever you want. He folded his thumbs and flipped up his forefinger. You think nobody will stand up to you when they're naked? He folded that one again and flipped up the next. And you think you're going to look inside my bag? Oh, he's a funny one. The smaller man spun his stun baton. The smaller man spun his stun baton and stepped towards him. He's not just smart, he's funny. The big man moved to his flank. Yeah, regular comedian. The comedians are over there. Mace inclined his head towards the faux Fahian and his ketonic partner, naked and shivering in the corner. See the difference? Yeah, the big man. Yeah, the big man flexed his hands. What are you supposed to be then? I'm a prophet. Mace lowered his voice as though sharing a secret. I can see the future. Sure you can. He set his stubble-smeared jaw and showed jagged yellow teeth. What do you see? You, Mace said, bleeding. This dialogue's awesome. His expression might have been a smile if there had been the faintest hint of warmth in his eyes. The big man suddenly looked less confident. In this, he could perhaps be excused. Like all successful predators, he was interested only in victims. Certainly not in opponents, which was the purpose of his particular racket. After all, members of any sapient species who were culturally accustomed to wearing clothes would feel hesitant, uncertain, and vulnerable when caught naked, especially humans. Any normal person would stop to put on pants before throwing a punch. Mace Windu, in contrast, looked like he might know of uncertainty and vulnerability by reputation, but had never met either of them face to face. 188 centimeters of muscle and bone, absolutely still, absolutely relaxed. From his attitude, the probi mist that trickled down his naked skin might have been carbon fiber reinforced ceramatic body armor. Aye, that's right, Porg. Do you have a move to make? Mace said. I'm in a hurry. The big man's gaze switched sideways and he said, Mace felt a pressure in the force over his left kidney and heard the sizzle of a triggered stun baton. He spun and caught the wrist of the smaller man with both hands, shoving the baton's sparking corona well clear with a twist that levered his face into the path of Mace's rising foot. The impact made a smack as wet and meaty as the snap of bone. The big man bellowed and lunged, and Mace stepped to one side and whip-cracked the smaller man's arm to spin his slackening body. Mace caught the small man's head in the palm of one hand and shoved it crisply into the big man's nose. The two men skidded in a tangle on the slippery, damp floor and went down. The baton spat lightning as it skidded into the corner. The smaller man lay limp. The big man's eyes spurted tears and he sat on the floor, trying with both hands to massage his smashed nose into shape. Blood leaked through his fingers. Mace stood over him. Told you. The big man didn't seem impressed. Mace shrugged. A prophet, it was said, received no honour on his own world. Mace dressed silently while the other travellers reclaimed their belongings. The big man made no attempt to stop them, or even to rise. Presently the smaller man stirred, moaned, and opened his eyes. As soon as they focused well enough to see Mace still in the dressing station, they cursed and clawed at his holster flap, struggling to free his blaster. Mace looked at him. The man decided his blaster was better off where it was. You don't know how much trouble you're in, he muttered silently, as he settled back down on the floor, words blurred by the smashed mouth. He drew his knees up and wrapped his arms around them. People who bunch up with capital militia don't live long around. The big man interrupted him with a cuff on the back of his head. Shut it. Capital militia? Mace understood now. His face settled into a grim mask, and he finished buckling down his holster. You're the police. Corrupt police then, I guess. I really enjoy bits like that in the novels as well. Again, Kenobi had parts like that where he was he was trying to be undercover, but was kind of forced into kind of skirmishes with like the locals, and he would obviously come out on top, you know. The faux Fahian mimed a pratfall. You'd think they'd hire cops who weren't so clumsy, eh? Oh, I dunno, Footy, the Kitunak said in a characteristically slow, determinedly relaxed voice. They bounced real nice. Both Kubas words something about slippery floors, inappropriate footwear, and unfortunate accidents. The cops scowled. May squatted in front of them. His right hand rested on the Power Five's butt. It'd be a shame if somebody had a blaster malfunction, he said. A slip, a fall. Sure, it's embarrassing. It hurts, but you'll get over it in a day or two. If somebody's blaster accidentally went off when you fell, he shrugged. How long will it take you to get over being dead? Oofed. The smaller cop started to spit back something venomous. The larger one interrupted him with another cuff. We scan you, he growled. Just go. Mace stood. I remember when this was a nice town. He shouldered his kit bag and walked out into the blazing tropical afternoon. He passed under a dented, rusty sign without looking up. The sign said, Welcome to Pelik Ba. Faces. Hard faces. Cold faces. Hungry or drunk. Hopeful. Calculating. Desperate. Street faces. Mace walked a pace behind and to the right of the Republic Intelligence Station boss, keeping his right hand near the Merson's butt. Late at night, the streets were still crowded. Harun Kal had no moon. I think Seren Piddle in Vector Prime could have been doing without a moon. What do you think, purist? And pause. It didn't have a moon. Where did I just lose my place? There. The streets were lit with spill from taverns and outdoor cafes, light poles, tall hexagonal pillars of duracrete with glow strips running up each face, stood every 20 metres along with sides of the street. Their pools of yellow glow bordered black shadow. To pass into one of the ally mouths was to be wiped from existence. The intel station boss was a bulky, red-cheeked woman about Mace's age. She ran the Highland Green wash terrier, a thriving laundry and public refresher station of the capital's north side. She never stopped talking. Mace hadn't started listening. The force nudged him with threat in all directions, from the rumble of wheeled ground cars that careened at random through crowded streets to the fan of death sticks in a teenager's fist. Uninformed militia swaggered or strutted or sometimes stood posed, puffed up with the fake dangerous attitude of armed amateurs. Holster flaps open, blaster rifles propped against hip bones. He saw plenty of weapons waved, saw people shoved, saw lots of intimidation and threatening looks, and crude street gang horseplay. He didn't see much actual keeping of the peace. When a burst of blaster fire sang out a few blocks away, no one even looked around. But nearly everyone looked at Mace. Militia faces, human or too close to call. Looking at Mace, seeing only a Kurin in off-world clothes. Their eyes went dead cold, blank, measuring. After a while, hostile eyes all look alike. Mace kept alert and concentrated on projecting a powerful aura of "don't mess with me." He would have felt safer in the jungle. Street faces, drink bloated moons of bust-outs, mooching spare change. A Wookiee gone grey from nose to chest, exhaustedly straining against his harness as he pulled a two-wheeled taxi cart fending off street kids with one hand while the other held on to his money belt. Jungle prospector faces, fungus scars on their cheeks, weapons at their sides. Young faces, children younger than Depa had been on the day she became his Padawan, offering trinkets to Mace at special discounts because they liked his face. Many of them were Karunai. From the private journals of Mace Windu. Sure, come to the city. Life's easy in the city. No vine cats, no drill mites, no brass vines or deaf hollows, no shoveling grass or manure, no hauling water, no tending ack pups. Plenty of money in the city. All you have to do is sell this or endure that. What you're really selling, your youth, your hope, your future. Anyone with sympathy for the separatist cause should spend a few days in Pelik Ba, find out that the Confederacy is really fighting for. It's good that Jedi do not indulge in hate. The station's bosses charted somehow wandered. Sorry, I'll start again. The station's boss's chatter somehow wandered onto the subject of the intel front she managed. Her name was Flora Marilla Tank. Flora Marilla. But call me Floor, thank you, sweetie. Everybody does. Mace picked up the thread of her ramble. Hey, everybody needs a shower once in a while. Why not get your clothes spiffed at the same time? So everybody comes here. I get Jups, Cornos, you name it. I get militia and Sepe brass. Well, used to, till the pullback. I get everybody. I got a pool. I got 6 different saunas. I got different showers. You can get water, alcohol, sonics, you name it. Maybe a recorder or two to really get the dirt we need. Some of these militia officers, you'd be amazed that they fall to talking about, alone in a steam room. Know what I mean? She was the chattiest spy he'd ever met. When he eventually stopped for breath, Mace told her so. Yeah, funny, huh? How do you think I've survived this game for 23 years? Talk as much as I do, it takes people longer to notice you never really say anything. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe she could tell the threat that smoked in those streets. Some people thought they could hold danger at bay by pretending to be safe. I got 37 employees, only 5 are intel. Everybody else just works there. Huh. I make twice the money off the Washteria as I draw after 23 years in the service. Not that it's all that hard to do, if you know what I mean. You know what an RS-17 makes? Pathetic. Pathetic. What's a Jedi make these days? Do they even pay you? Not enough, I'll bet. They love that service as its own reward junk, don't they? Especially when it's other people's service, I'll just bet. Cheers for sticking around this far, dudes. We're not far away from finishing the chapter. The start of the chapter had all the good stuff. It's kind of slowing down a little bit here. We're getting kind of introduced to some of these kind of side characters and what's kind of happening on Harun Kal in the city. She'd already assembled a team to take him up country. 6 men with heavy weapons and an almost new streamcrawler. They look a little rough, but they're good boys, all of them. Freelancers, but solid. Years in the bush. 2 are full-blooded cornos. Good with the natives, you know? For security reasons, she explained, she was taking him to meet them herself. Sooner you're on your way, happier we'll both be. Right? Am I right? Taxis are hopeless this time of day. Mind the gutter cookie. That stuff will chew right through your boots. Hey, watch it, creepo. Ever hear that peds have the right of way? Yeah, well, your mother eats hut slime. She doesn't stop talking, does she? She's like constant. She stumped along the she stumped along the street, arms swinging. You know this Jedi of yours is wanted, right? You got a way to get her off world? What Mace had was the Halleck on station in the Ventran system with 20 armed landers and a regiment of clone troopers. What he said was, yes. A new round of blaster fire sang perhaps a block or two away, salted with staccato pops crisper than blaster hits. Floor instantly turned left and dodged away up the street. Whoops, this way. You want to keep clear of those little rumbles, you know. Might just be a food riot, but you never know. Those hand claps, slug throwers, or I'm a Doug could be could be action by some of these guerrillas your Jedi runs. Lots of sorry. Could be action by some of these guerrillas your Jedi runs lot. That's structured weird, that sentence. Your Jedi runs. Lots of the corners. Oh, there we go. One more time. Could be action by some of these guerrillas your Jedi runs. Lots of the corners carry slug throwers, and slugs bounce. Hear that pause? Time to bounce. Slug throwers, I hate them, but they're easy to maintain. Day or two in the jungle and your blaster will never fire again. A good slug rifle. Keep them wiped and oiled. They last forever. The guerrillas have pretty good luck with them. Even though they take a lot of practice, slugs are ballistic, you know? You have to plot the trajectory in your head. Give me a blaster anytime. A new note joined the blaster fire, a deeper, throatier thrum. Mace scowled over his shoulder. That was some kind of light repeater, a T-21, or maybe a Merson Thunderbolt, military hardware. It would be good, he said, if we could get off this street. Well, she assured him, no, don't worry. These scuffles never add up to much. We're on the last page here, dudes. He tried to calculate how fast he could dig his lightsaber out of the kit bag. The firing intensified. Voices joined in, shouts and screams, anger and pain. It started to sound less like a riot and more like a firefight. Just beyond the corner ahead, white-hot bolts flared past along the right-of-way. More blaster fire zinged behind them. The firefight was overflowing, becoming a flood that might surround them at any second. Mace looked back. Along this street, he still could see only crowds and ground cars, but the militia members were starting to take an interest, checking weapons, trotting towards alleys and cross streets. Flor said behind him, "See, look at that. They're not even really aiming at anything. Now we just nip across." She was interrupted by a splattering thwap. Mace had heard that sound too often. Steam, superheated by a high-energy bolt, exploding through living flesh. A deep tissue blaster hit. He turned back to Flor and found her staggering in a drunken circle, painting the pavement with her blood. Ugh. Where her left arm should have been was only a fist-sized mass of ragged tissue. Where the rest of her arm was, he couldn't see. She said, What? He dived into the street. He rolled, coming up to slam her hip joint with his shoulder. He rolled, coming up to slam her hip joint with his shoulder. The impact folded her over him. He lifted her, turned, and sprang back to the corner. Bright flares of blaster bolts bracketed invisible sizzles and fingers snapped of hypersonic slugs. He reached the meager cover of the corner and laid her flat on the sidewalk, tucked close against the wall. This isn't supposed to happen. Her life was flooded out of the shattered stump of her shoulder. Even dying, she kept talking. A blurry murmur. This isn't happening. It can't be happening. My arm. In the force, Mace could feel her shredded brachial artery. With the force, he reached inside her shoulder to pinch it shut. The flood trickled to sluggish swelling. Take it easy. He propped her legs on his kit bag to help maintain blood pressure to her brain. Try to stay calm. You can live through this. Boots clattered on permacrete behind them. A militia squad sprinting towards them. Help is on the way. He leaned closer. I need the meet point and the recognition code for the team. What are you talking about? Listen to me. Try to focus. Before you go into shock, tell me where I can find the upcountry team and the recognition code so we'll know each other. You don't understand. This isn't happening. Yes, it is. Focus. Lives depend on you. I need the meet point and the code. But you don't understand. The militia behind him clattered to a stop. You, Cornel, stand away from that woman. He glanced back, 6 of them, firing stance. The light pole at their backs haloed black shadow across their faces. Plasma-charred muzzles stared at him. This woman is wounded, badly. Without medical attention, she will die. You're no doctor, one said, and shot him. And that is the end of chapter 1. That kind of took a turn there at the end, didn't it? What are you all thinking about it so far? Personally, I'm still... cheers, Darth Paws. I thought I told you to bounce, though, so it's awkward that you're still here. Interesting stuff, Narrow Dark says. Like, the start of the chapter was giving us, a wee bit of lore, kind of getting us into it. Better than you remember. Good. And then it slowed down a wee bit, and then right at the end there, Floor, is that her name? Gets total blasted to pieces, and then I guess Mace gets shot, so that's quite the cliffhanger until next time. No, that's good stuff, by the way. It has good pacing, that's right. Pacing. So, what books are you all reading at the moment? I'll just talk to you a little bit before I sign off. Or even audiobooks. What audiobooks are you listening to, EU-wise? Getting through Outbound Flight. Oh, nice one, Narrow Dark. The one that Zan pauses riding the Dark Tide onslaught. The first X-Wing book, Tony's reading that one. Yeah, Knights of Undercover, a juicy chapter that one was. For the most part, yeah, I'll agree with that. Cool, it's good to see that you're all reading it, and pardon me, I look forward to finding out what you think of those books. And apart from this, I'm going over The Last Command. You should read the Legacy comics. Yeah, I'm going over The Last Command again for the video I've been trying to work on for the history of. I need to get that finished, but those videos just take a bit more time for research and stuff. But I mean, I've got all my sources and stuff ready. Like, the video's pretty much done. But the Legacy comics, I'm definitely going to be covering those relatively soon on the channel. But apart from that, next up is, I guess, the Ewok movies. Will show them some love, since Star Wars Theory is too good for them. Anyways, dudes, we've been going just over an hour. I think that might even be... It says 109 minutes, 110 minutes. So, I'll get out your hair, right, and I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. Going to read the Second Republic Commando book after it. Nice. Oh, cheers, Porg. Yeah, that'll be fun. That's a good idea. We can do that. Oh yeah, you were talking about outbound flight. Cheers, pause. Thank you. Timothy Zahn. After that, he wrote something quest. Can someone Survivor's Quest? That's what it's called. About Luke and Mara, and I think that's like a prequel. No, it can't be a prequel to Outbound Flight. Is Outbound obviously Outbound Flight is mentioned in Heir of the Empire with like Juris Sabayoff and stuff like that. Is the novel about the actual flight itself, or is it kind of Survivor's Quest is written before Outbound Flight, but is set after? Okay, Narrow Dark. Cheers for correcting me on that. You're lucky I'm not Star Wars theory, or I'd be getting grumpy at that. Survivor's Quest happened before NGO. Yeah, yeah. Outbound Flight is prequel era. Right, cool. I'm all clued up. Right, dudes. It's been fun talking to you, and I'm looking forward to seeing all your comments once the stream uploads. So, I'll speak to you all later, and long live the EU, and lang may your lums reek, alright? Take care.